When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back to the Black Table here on the Black Star Network. This is our weekly hour devoted to exploring ideas and subjects of special importance to people of African descent and to others fighting to build a better society. I'm your regular host, Greg Carr, and we are joined today by two titans in the field of cultural meaning making, institution builders, conveners of the arts. In one case, a master musician and coalition builder. In another case, a brilliant sister in the field of literature and culture arts who has been convening music and literature and cultural meaning makers for quite some time now. We're joined today by Dr. Brenda Greene, who is the director of Medgar College Center for Black Literature. And we're also joined by Craig Harris, master musician. And we'll be talking about some upcoming events and for both of them. But right now, I want to move very quickly to introduce the first of our two guests, and that's Dr. Brenda Greene. Brenda Greene, in addition to being the founder and executive director of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar College, which is, of course, part of the City University of New York system, she's the director of the National Black Writers Conference at Medgar College, which is celebrating its 20th year this year. She's the editor of numerous volumes and an academic, a scholar in her own rank. She edited The African Presence and Influence of Cultures of the Americas, co-edited Resistance and Transformation, Conversation with Black Writers, Meditations and Ascensions, Black Writers on Writing, Defining Ourselves, Black Writers in the 90s, and so much more. We spend the whole hour talking about Dr. Greene. She is a legendary figure in the field of Black literature. And so we're just so honored that you were able to carve a little time out with us today. Dr. Brenda Greene, welcome to the Black Table and the Black Star Network.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carr. Thank you for having me on the show. And it's always exciting to have an opportunity to talk with you. You know, I as I thought about this, I said, when I see you, I am so inspired that I want to go up and pick up more books to read. And I'm really pleased that you will be joining us for our upcoming program.
Yes.
The Center for Black Literature Anniversary Jubilee is actually the Center for Black Literature that we are celebrating 20 years. But the National Black Writers Conference actually started in 1986.
Yes.
It was the vision of John Oliver Killens, who was our writer in residence, and he wanted to continue the tradition of hosting Black writers conferences. He wanted to do it every year. And when he came to the college, he was the writer in residence. And we held the first conference at Medgar College in 1986. We could not continue to hold it every year. John Oliver Killens unfortunately passed away in 1987. He made his transition. But at that point, Elizabeth Nunes, who was chair of the Humanities Division, hosted several more conferences, directed them 1991, 96, actually 88, 91, 96. And she decided to step down and focus on her writing in 2000. And that's where I came in, because I had been working, I had taken a sabbatical, and I was managing Nkuru Books.
Yes.
Which was the oldest independent Black bookstore in Brooklyn.
But before you go on, Dr. Greene, please, y'all, please pay close attention to this. The Black bookstore movement is something that we're going to probably have to have you back and have a whole conversation around. But in Nkuru, that is a legendary bookstore. And so thank you. I just wanted to make sure to emphasize that, because there are young people watching this who may not know about that information. But anyway,
Nkuru Books was started by a former teacher, Leothi Miller. And she and her mother, when she passed, her mother took it over. And my son, Talib Kweli, who is a hip hop artist, grew up in a house. He loved books. And he came to us one day and said, I got a job. He was 19 at Nkuru Books. And the manager was just so amazed. She said, how does he know so much about books and reading? Guess what? And so he became really obsessed with making sure that Incurable Books stayed. And when he and Yasmin Bey, formerly Mos Def, got their money for their first album, Black Star, they decided to take that money and buy Incurable Books.
My goodness.
And guess what? They went on tour. So who's going to manage it?
Who was going to manage it?
Who's going to manage it? So I was blessed to have at Medgar College President Edison O. Jackson,
Yes,
who gave me support. I took a sabbatical, actually ended up staying almost 2 years, and I took over the management of Incurable Books with the family. My mother joined us. She came out of retirement and she joined us, and we managed Incurable Books, and I turned it into an educational and cultural center, a not-for-profit center.
yes.
And that's where I got, at that point, I also had been working with the National Black Writers Conference. I was coordinating the conferences, and we needed a place to ensure that the conference was held every year. And so I wrote a proposal for the Center for Black Literature, submitted it to CUNY, modeled it after the Gwendolyn Brooks Center for Black Literature and Creative Writing at Chicago State, founded by Hakeem Mahabudi.
Yes.
And we began to, we got funded, and we began to do the same kind of programs we were doing at Incurable. At Incurable, we used to have poetry readings, book signings. We started a theater project for youth. We did many cultural things. And so that was really the impetus behind starting the Center for Black Literature. And the Center for Black Literature continues the tradition of hosting the National Black Writers Conference. We host it, you could say every year. We host a major conference in the even years, and we've hosted conferences since 2006. In fact, all of our the proceedings or the talks from many of our conferences are posted on C-SPAN Book TV, because they used to come out and film many of our conferences. But we've had all of the major writers at our conference.
Yes.
You know, we've had Maya Angelou, Amiri Baraka, who we've honored. I'm talking about people we've honored: Sonia Sanchez, Walter Mosley. We had a symposia in the odd years on Toni Cade Mambara, Audre Lorde. We had Paul Marshall, Charles Johnson. It just goes on and on. Ishmael Reed, Nikki Giovanni, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Edwidge Dondercat, Michael Eric Dyson, Woody King, Hakeem Mahabudi, Khalil Gibran. We also have recently we honored Jacqueline Woodson, Herb Boyd, and Tracy K. Smith. We make sure that we try to have intergenerational programs at the conference. We host roundtables and workshops and readings. And that's just one of the major programs, but we're so much more than that. We also have a program for youth called Re-envisioning Our Lives Through Literature. And we bring teaching artists into the classrooms of our New York City high schools and middle schools. And they work with students on creating their own stories, their own poetry. We give them books. They use that as the motivation or platform for generating their own work. And at the end, they publish an anthology. And they also put on a production.
Wow.
We have something for the seniors called the Dr. Edith Rock Writing Workshop for Elders. Dr. Edith Rock was a faculty member at Medgar College in nursing, and she came to me in 2003 and said, you know, we don't have a record, we don't have many records of the stories that our elders are telling. We need to document those stories. And so we started the workshop in 2002. During COVID, we ran it via Zoom, but it's a partnership with Salem Presbyterian Church and Poets and Writers. They meet and every 2 weeks and work on different stories. Sometimes they're memoirs, sometimes issues. Their most recent volume, which is coming out in December, we're going to hold a big party for them, is focused on how they survived COVID and their thoughts on the insurrection, you know, on January 6th, and then home remedies, the remedies that people use for healing and nurturing.
Yes.
We have a Killens reading series. We've made sure that we want to hold John R. McKillens up. So we have a Killens reading series once a month, which features emerging writers and contemporary writers reading their works and talking about issues affecting Black literature. And we also publish the Killens Journal of Arts and Letters,
Yes,
which is really a peer-reviewed journal. We feature short stories, essays, nonfiction, poetry, and artwork. We believe in blending the arts, the literary arts, the visual arts, and the performance arts when we can. And we have many programs where we partner with other organizations like the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, Restoration Arts, the Center for Fiction. We also have the Wild Seas Writers Retreat because we are the Center for Black Literature. We support writers. We hold 2 retreats, one outside of New York City where writers can go for 4 or 5 days and work in seclusion, get individual feedback with writing leaders. And then we do one on campus. So we're very excited by that. And we also have a book club that meets once a month. It meets the last Wednesday of each month. So on October the 20th, we are celebrating 20 years of the National Black Writers Conference and our other literary programs. It's a celebration of the Center for Black Literature. We are honoring Troy Johnson, who is the founder and president of the African American Literary Book Club, or Literature Book Club, AALBC. It really does not get, I don't think Troy gets enough recognition for the pioneering work he's doing. He's not out of literature, but he loved books. Yeah. And the African American Literature Book Club is the largest online presence featuring books, resources for writers, book reviews, conferences, selling books. We've been using the AALBC to sell our books during COVID when we've had online conferences.
Yes.
And so we are very, very excited to give recognition to him and to celebrate him. We are also honoring Cheryl Wills, who is a longtime anchor and broadcast journalist at Spectrum News. In addition to being a journalist, she is an author. She wrote books which traced her great-grandfather's history. He was in the Civil War. She is a strong presence. She is devoted to making sure that the issues facing Black Americans, Black people in this country are featured on her broadcast. She also has a regular broadcast at 10 o'clock every night on Spectrum News, New York 1.
Yes.
And we also very pleased that Dr. Sonia Sanchez is the honorary chair of our committee. Yes. And our honorary committee includes you. Thank you so much, Dr. Carr. Thank you, Dr. Carr, Dr. Cornell West, yes. Nicole Hannah-Jones, yes. Edwidge Dondercat,
and Talib Kweli.
Talib Kweli, yes.
can't leave the young brother out. That's the man who is.
I'm just very excited at the work he's doing, and
no question.
Yes.
Well, we actually, this is a good moment for us, Dr. Greene, to pause, and when we come back on the other side of the break, I want to ask you about what you see in terms of the landscape as it relates to literature, the arts. Given this incredible amount of work that the center is doing, how you're moving to connect these previous generations to the future generations in terms of this work. But we're going to ask you about that and a lot more in a moment.
Okay.
Okay. When we come back here at the Black Table on the Black Star Network, we'll be back in a moment with Dr. Brenda Greene, the founder and director of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar College. Back in a moment.
I'm I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back to the Black Table here on the Black Star Network. I'm Greg Carr, your host, joined for the first half of our show today by Dr. Brenda Greene, founder and director of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar College. Dr. Greene, you gave us an astonishing, really, array of programs and initiatives that you all have been doing at the center and continue to do with that huge budget, I'm sure. Coming up. But, you mentioned early on that you modeled the center on the work of the Gwendolyn Brooks Center. And of course, that John Killens started the Writers' Conferences there in 1986. As you know, as we know, recently here in the DC area, Howard University hosted a writers symposium, Black Writers Symposium, which drew from the Black Writers Conferences of the 1970s, which were also started by John Oliver Killens. I wonder if you could perhaps give us your insight and reflections on the importance of institutions. And as I reminded them at the time, while Howard may be starting these conferences up again, this is really an unbroken genealogy, as you mentioned, with Chicago State and Medgar Evers. How important has it been to bring writers and artists together, in your opinion, and what kind of impact has this had over the years?
Well, I think, we're in an interesting time because many of the Black writers who are featured in these conferences have other places to talk about, other spaces to talk about their writing.
Yeah.
So I remember when I first began to do the conference, and I remember first I'm going back to John Oliver Killens, he'd pick up the phone and he called someone and said, I want you to be there. And they were there, right? And when I first began to host the conference, I didn't have that relationship. I as a result of doing so many conferences, I developed relationships with number of writers over the years.
Absolutely, because
I could send them a personal email, and they would say, "I'll be there."
I'll be there. Right? People don't refuse your calls again.
Well, but it's changing. It's changing.
Yeah, walk us through that.
And it's changing because, first of all, at one point, the only place where Black writers could really come together and talk about the state of Black literature and the issues facing Black writers and the themes, and make sure that other narratives were told, was at a National Black Writers Conference. I mean, one of the things that Sonia Sanchez used to say, when you come in, you check your ego at the door.
No question.
Because it was a gathering. It wasn't a conference. It was a community coming together. We always made sure there was space for the audience to interact with writers. It was almost like a festival.
Yes.
Festival, right? In quotes. And so we had booksellers, we had vendors, we had book signings, and we had conversations about what was really going on. And the writers mingled with everyone. And so what I've seen happen is that I can write them, but I don't get that personal contact anymore. And that's because there are different spaces, as I said, for Black writers to discuss what they're doing. And let me share a classic example. One year, I had written a proposal, which I have to write. I have to say the NEA has been funding part of the conference for years. Mm-hmm. And I have to get agreements for people to come. And a number of people said they would come. And then the Association of Writing Programs was holding their major convention at the same time as our conference. And people began to withdraw their acceptance.
What?
I was furious.
Oh my goodness, I can't
They
even.
began to withdraw because And, you have different artists. I don't think someone like a Haki would have withdrawn, but you have younger people because they had a larger venue in order to showcase what they were doing.
Wow.
And most of them, we just didn't have them that year. But what I decided to do was to reach out to Association of Writing Programs. And I decided I would make sure that I was involved in some way because you have to do inside and outside.
Yes.
And so I submitted a proposal for a National Black Writers panel at the Association of Writing Programs.
Nice. Nice.
And I did that for several years. And because for me, we don't need to be in conflict with each other.
That's right.
We have to create spaces where we have win-win situations. And that audience also needs to know about what we're doing
at
Medgar College, what Black writers are saying, the spaces they need. I did the same thing for the College Language Association, which is the Black division of Modern Language Association. I found out they were holding their conferences at the same time as National Black Writers Conference. So what did I do? I went to the conference and I made sure that they knew that we don't need to be in conflict with each other. Yes. So guess what? They no longer hold their conference at the end of March.
Wow. They
moved it to April. And I've also presented panels on the National Black Writers Conference at their conference. So what I'm seeing is that I have to continue. We all have to continue to have these relationships. We have to support each other at conferences. Yeah. All the conferences, we should be at each other's conferences.
Yes.
We should be supporting each other. And we have to make sure that we collaborate, around different programs so that when I call you, you may not come, but maybe you can send someone else. So these relationships have to continue to be real. That was the beautiful thing that I saw about the conference at Howard, is seeing Paul, all of the people who've been at all of my conferences, Paul, Marie,
yes,
Haki,
yes,
Kassan, all of them sitting together.
Yes, her board.
And they support, the publishing world has done that.
That's right.
And I had an opportunity to travel to Cuba, my only time to Cuba. But I went there with all of them. Well, Kassan wasn't there. Paul, Haki, and the Hudson, Cheryl and Wade Hudson from Just Us Books.
Yes.
They went for the international conference, International Writers Conference, and they were representing the publishing division, and I went with them.
Wow.
But that's what they do. They support each other with the publishing of Black writers. I remember when Paul Coates came to the National Black Writers Conference and he said, I want to start an imprint. That's when he talked about publishing on demand.
Yes.
And so the thing is, we have to make sure that everyone is in the room, and we have to make sure Ethelbert Miller, I'm sure you know Ethelbert.
Oh, of course. Many years worked with him.
Yes, the mayor of he's called the mayor.
No question.
Ethelbert used to always say to me, if half of the people in your room aren't young, like in their 30s and below, something is wrong when you do these conferences.
Yeah.
And you have to document the conferences, and you have to make sure you bring them in.
Yes.
And so what I began to do was to make sure that our panels and our roundtables had young people. We have a poetry reading. We have a youth day at the conference where we bring our youth. So we have to consciously and deliberately make sure that we are involving everyone in all aspects.
Well, thank you. In the couple of minutes we have left, I want to make sure that everyone knows about Thursday, October 20th at 6:30, the 20th anniversary Jubilee there. And since you mentioned it, there's a partnership you're in with the National Council of Teachers in Pittsburgh School of Education. How's that connected to the gala? And I see that our friend and sister Laree Daniels Favors is going to be the mistress of ceremony. So could you talk about that
quickly? As I said, we have to have something for everyone. We launched a national writing contest with NCTE, and the people all over the country did essays and prose and nonfiction on writing and activism. And so we're giving out scholarships because, again, the Center for Black Literature is about supporting every component of our public, our youth, our teachers, our elders, our literary writers, our industry people, and that's a way of ensuring that we are supporting them. We want to acknowledge them. So we are giving out scholarships. The winners have been announced. It went out to thousands and thousands of students in high schools and colleges. And I saw the titles of their paper. They look really, really interesting. And then Cheryl Wills is doing a roundtable with them the day before on the National Writing Day that's posted by the National Council of Teachers of English. Wow. Our winners will be sharing what they wrote at the conference. So as I said, it's the Jubilee. I encourage everyone to go to our website, www.centerforblackLiterature.org. It says you're inviting. You can click on and find out how you can attend the Jubilee, or you can donate. If you can't attend, any support you give is always valued. So you can support in a number of ways, and we encourage you to be there for this Jubilee celebration of 20 years of supporting Black writers, Black literature, and having many, many programs and venues to support that.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Dr. Greene, for joining us for a few minutes today here at the Black Table. And as someone who, thanks to you, has been able to be in those conferences and in the room and hear those conversations and participate in them, it is truly transformational. And the work of the Center for Black Literature, really indispensable work, is really something that we're in your debt for. And I hadn't thought about that in terms of how generations have shifted, but there's always going to be a place and a need for the center and for that work. So we want to thank you for joining us. And y'all, listen, you don't want to miss this gathering, this Jubilee celebration on the 20th of October. And if, as you say, in case you can't make it, please visit the website, www.centerforblackLiterature.org, and find ways to support the center. Thank you, Dr. Greene, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. And thank you for being an honorary committee member.
Yeah, of course.
I look forward to seeing you.
Look forward to seeing you. No question. So we get rolling up there. Next time he got his new book, White Fear, out. You say, you need to get with Dr. Greene.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Very timely. Very timely.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. So when we return in a moment, we're going to be joined by another New Yorker from a different part of New York. A brother who is a legendary figure in Black music, Black culture, and he too has an event coming up, and that's Mr. Craig Harris, Brother Craig Harris, the trombonist, the composer, band leader, and culture keeper. We'll be back in a moment here at the Black Table for continuation of our conversation around culture keepers, and institution builders. Back in a moment.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back to the Black Table here on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to support the Black Star Network across all platforms. And you see the important work that the network is doing. And we're just honored that the Black Table is one of a number of shows in the constellation and the growing number of shows here on the Black Star Network. We have just spoken with Dr. Brenda Greene, and of course her work at Medgar College over the years, and beyond that as a culture keeper, a bookstore owner, and a person who has built institutions that engender a love, not only a love and a passion for our culture, but support those who are practicing the craft. She, of course, is operating out of what is known as the People's Republic of Brooklyn. Well, we're going to go to a different part of New York now. We're going to go to the village of Harlem to hear from a brother who is a mighty force in the annals of culture keepers of African descent. He's past his 5th decade now, not only as a trombonist, composer, band leader, but also what has been described as a gifted sonic shaman. This brother has performed with and composed with and worked alongside folks like Sun Ra. He has released just a torrent of music over the years, and we're going to talk about some of that music. His most recent collaboration, his most recent work, Managing the Mask, was successfully released this year. But I'm not going to go on and on at this moment. I want to bring him to the Black Table. Baba Craig Harris. Baba Craig, welcome to the table, brother.
Thank you. Welcome. Glad to be at the Black Table.
Well, you've been at the Black Table, I guess. We just put his name on here. You've been helping build the Black. Listen, man, before we got started, I know you and Dr. Greene were matching up on who you knew in common, part of the family and all this thing. Exactly. Man, when I think about you, I think about, obviously, Amiri Baraka, Sekou Sundiata. And then for a lot of the young people, they don't realize you co-composed the soundtrack for Judas and the Black Messiah, huh? This is one of your latest ones. Could you talk a little bit about how you got into the work, man, of culture keeping, and in particular as a musician?
Okay, I'm from New York. My family's from South Carolina. My great-grandmother moved our family in 1933. She moved our family north to Long Island, well, to Harlem first. And from there, they did days work. My aunts and my great aunts, they did days work out on Long Island, North Shore of Long Island, which is one of the most affluent areas in the world.
Yes, sir.
And, so my family came up that way. When they got their little pennies together, they moved out close to Roosevelt, Hempstead, places close to Garden City or Seacliff, these wealthy places. Yes. And I grew up there in Hempstead public school system. I started playing the trombone when I was 9 years old. Okay. And because that was the time when young people, when you were about 9 or 10, they had public schools where you had a chance to play an instrument, to learn an instrument. They take you into the room, you learn how to play the instrument.
That's right.
Okay. From there,
right. Do they still do that in New York public schools?
A lot of public schools in New York. It's a shame. And a lot of urban America, it's not happening now.
That's exactly right. I learned the trumpet as a young man in elementary school, like you said. And then I got to Tennessee State, and when I saw this young girl from Arkansas, Tanya Boyle, put that horn to her lips and blow a note I couldn't even hear, brother, I switched to the baritone horn. So I was just saying, but like you said, that's important. I know over the years you've helped young people learn instruments. Institution,
you're right there, and you're right. So from moving there on, I went to beautiful public school system, Hempstead. But coming in, I had aunts who lived in Harlem, so back and forth between Hempstead and Harlem. And then in 71, I graduated and I went to college at Old Westbury, where I met a woman named Charlotte McIntyre, who we call Shashi McIntyre, her husband, Macondakin McIntyre, and Warren Smith. And they had, if not the first, one of the first African-American music programs, not jazz program, not classical, African-American music program. They had a curriculum at Westbury.
So I went to Old Westbury.
Yeah, right.
And for those of you who don't know Shashi McIntyre, we talk about the book, The New Jim Crow. But I know Professor McIntyre wrote her book, Criminalizing a Race. It's one of the titans in African-American studies. And so Wakanda Ken, of course, the musician, huh? So that's where y'all met.
That's where I met. And that's the thing, Greg. It's like, so I was studying music, but Shashi pulled me aside one day, pulled me by the collar and said, can you read and write? You can play that horn, but can you read and write? So he said, I want you in my classes. And so I was in her classes. And Westbury was one of those magic places like Antioch in Ohio, Antioch, and DC. It was one of those so-called alternate colleges where we had incredible, all this is not new to me. Like we had incredible African-American faculty at Westbury. So I got politicized there. Okay. And my last year of school, Pat Patrick, Lordine Pat Patrick, a baritone saxophonist who happens to be the father of Duval Patrick, who was the governor of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Pat Patrick was one of the founding members of Sun Ra's band.
Wow.
He was one of Sun Ra's original members in his band. So he said, well, what you going to do now, man? I said, I don't know. He said, come down to the club. And I went down to this place called The Bottom Line. I sat in with the band. And Sun Ra said, do you have a passport? I'm like 21, 20. I said, no. He said, go get a passport.
Yes.
And so I graduated. That's like June 4th, 1976. I'm just leaving college. And so I go sit in with Sun Ra. He said, you got a passport? I said, no. He said, well, what? I said, get a passport. I said, why? Because we're going to Paris next week. Boom. Wow. So I said, oh, this is how this flow. This is really going to be nice. I was going to get ready to go try to get my doctorate. I was going to go up to UMass and get with Max Roach because they had a program up there.
Oh, that's right. UMass. They pioneered in that. Archie Shep, I think, was up there too.
Exactly. Archie Shep, UMass, Dr. Yusef Latif. But I was very lucky. Sun Ra said, go on. And it's so funny. I was familiar with Sun Ra's work because there was a place called the East, 10 Cable place.
Oh, yes, sir.
And so I lived in the East.
Did you?
I mean, talking about J2 music. J2 I lived there.
There's a new documentary out called The Sun Rises in the East. It's only about an hour long, but it tells that story. Man, the East is we really all are in some ways children of the East, even those of us who didn't come through because of the culture. Could you talk about what that was like?
Okay. So like, they had programs like all the, like Dr. Greene was talking about, they had reading programs from, G2 committed to the uplifting of the race. And it goes back to me, really, Dr. Carr is like going back to George, Booker T. Washington, cast your boots where you stand. This is very important to me. That means in your hood, run your hood, run where you live, complete your narrative. So the East was like a cultural kind of haven. And we would go there and hear the music all the time, but they had other programs going. They had food co-ops, they had programs, and it was invaluable to our neighborhood going to this thing about institution building. So G2 was, and Mensa Wali, they did a lot of things. And this is where I got a chance to really hear I heard Pharaoh Saunders there, I heard Sonny Rollins there, I heard McCoy Tyner there, I heard Hakeem Mabuti before he was, when he was Don Lee there. I heard Amiri Baraka there. I heard all of these great people in this place. So it was like a place to just like Westbury was like the undergrad, and the East was like the master program where I was going to get the master program at the same time. And Sun Ra said, that's why I saw Sun Ra. I used to go in the East and Sun Ra would play for like 4 or 5 hours. We come out of there changed.
Wow.
And this changed my life.
Come on.
It changed my life. They played 3 hours. So then, and now all the time it's about institutioning building. Yes, and so people have to know, for the young people, Sun Ra was born in 1914, everybody. There was a period called 1914. This man was born in segregated Birmingham, Alabama.
Teach.
Okay, 1914. And he was walking around, and by 1924, like when he was like about 15, he was telling people he was from outer space. And that's and walking around Birmingham, Alabama.
Unbelievable. And he hadn't changed his name. He's still Herman Blunt down there.
He was Herman Blunt down there, exactly.
But he's still from another planet. Is that what you're saying?
And plus he was into Egyptology. It wasn't Kemet then. He was the forerunner. So this young man was like in the 30s talking about Egypt and talking about he was out of space.
Yes,
and
sir.
Segregated Birmingham. They call it Birmingham.
No question. The place, brother. And it reminds me of remember that scene in Space of the Place where Sun Ra just appears and the brothers are shooting pool in there, and he looked at him and said, "Don't you know you're not real?" And he had that pharaonic headdress on, man. I can't even imagine what that was like to cross.
So this man changed. I was prepared by Makan and Shashi, but Sun Ra just took me to the next level. And I worked with the orchestra from 76 to 80. And during that time, we went to the second Black Arts Festival in Lagos. We went to Festac. It was my first time on the continent of Africa.
And you've actually created a staging of Craig Harris's Festac 77, huh? Where you kind of did some of that.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote a piece inspired by that. I inspired that. And that's really what I want to come. I come from some deep people. I'm very fortunate to come from some very deep people. And just working my way. So then going into the New York scene, playing a lot. We used to come down to DC. There was a man named Jimmy Gray, Black Fire Records.
Yes, sir.
In DC. And we spent a lot of time in DC. And I work, and I just, we have a network of great musicians. So I've been fortunate. And I moved to Harlem. I'm a resident of Harlem for over the last 50 years, which I'm celebrating as a musician this year. Like in 72 was the year I said, I'm going to do this music thing. And to this day, I'm doing it. And we have an organization in Harlem called Harlem Jazz Box with 2 X's. And we present concerts every Friday night at 15 Mount Morris Park West, Mount Morris Presbyterian Ascension Church. It's that thing. It comes from like the movement with, creative, like the collective Black artists from back in the day, or Strata East, where we have to cast our boots where we stand. So we keep our music in our community because this is the only way we can control our narrative. If we don't, and it's important that. So Sunrise, like people, how can you say you're from outer space? You can be anything you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to be. You have to control your narrative. So we started this organization 8 years ago. We have an organization by my former neighbor, may she rest in peace, Pat Eaton, called 3 on 3, where we give concerts in our community at affordable price every Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. You can go to Harlem Jazz Box spelled with 2x's.com and get our information. Yes. And that's I'm in service to this community, I mean I stand on the shoulders of like not giants, I mean double giants.
No question. And, as they say, Sonny Rollins, saxophone colossus.
Colossus giant.
But I tell you what, Baba Craig, when we come back, we're going to take a break. When we come back, please walk us through Breathe, because we know that's coming up at Mount Olivet Baptist Church.
Exactly.
On Lenox Avenue, Malcolm X Boulevard. So when we come back with you, Baba Craig, we're going to talk about this upcoming work that we want folk to attend and be blessed by. And we'll just take a break for a second, and we'll be back in a moment here on the Black Star Network at the Black Table. Back in a moment.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back to the Black Table here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Greg Carr, reminding everyone to support the Black Star Network. And here again, you see why. After talking with Dr. Brenda Greene about the Black Writers Conference, we have now entered the deep well of music and culture keeping with Baba Craig Harris, who has, in a whirlwind moment, led us through a great deal of the history of the last more than half century of Black music, Black culture, Black history, Black memory. Baba Craig, when we left, you were talking about standing on the shoulders of these giants, these colossus, and you yourself, of course, are one. And also the important work of continuing to keep the music and the culture alive by providing audiences with opportunities to hear that you do this on a weekly basis. Could you talk a little bit about this upcoming piece, Breathe, though? That's fast.
Right.
What's going on there?
Okay, so to give you the history, to get to Breathe, like we just come out of this COVID lockdown. We kept our concerts going during the COVID lockdown. It was that important for because a lot of people had lost faith, and they would say, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do. So if one of my mentors, if Amiri Barak was alive, he said, Craig, get going. You know, these are people, you need to keep it going. So we presented the concerts all the way through the COVID. Once it was safe, with the space holds 200 people, we only 60 could get in. So during the COVID, at the same time, we kept busy. I was called to do the score for Judas and the Black Messiah, the Fred Hampton film.
Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because of course, so many people, particularly young people, have seen that film.
Right, that's why I wanted to.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that if you don't mind, Baba Craig.
You know, and like I'm a composer and a writer. I can go anywhere you want to go, but you always need somebody to open the door. You know, put you in. That's about us pulling in. So Shaka King, the director of the film, yes. He knows my music. He's known my music he's 40. He's known my music 41 years. He knows my music well, and he grew up around me. He understands about the culture. I take my hat off to this young man, and he's vetted me for 41 years because of nepotism. He's my nephew, so you understand.
Okay,
you understand, and that's what we do. We take care of each other. So when Warner Brothers said, "You want to do this film?" he said, "Yes," and I'm bringing my uncle with me.
Yes,
and
sir.
They tripped, but they found out that I was vet. He can handle it, and I partnered with a great composer named Mark Isham, and we got that film done during the pandemic. And we had to step up technically because we had to do it all just like we're talking right now. We had to do it like bi-coastal virtual. Really? And
you can do it virtually.
Yeah, you know, because they got the machines, they got the software programs, Logic, Pro Tools, all of this. And we did this because we couldn't get in the room for a year before we did the film. And then a year after we started, we were able to rent Manhattan Center, which is in New York City, and we brought in an 80-piece orchestra, and then we recorded it then. But that was after a year of prepping everything. Man. And that was a highlight for me because Manhattan Center, I grew up in Manhattan Center too. I used to see James Brown, all the great acts at Manhattan Center, right on the dance floor. So when I'm leading this 80-piece orchestra, I'm saying, man, I did this as a kid. So it all prepares you for that thing.
Full circle. But I tell you, Bob, the way you describe about technology, the way you use technology, there are a lot of folks who I don't think they could have made that pivot as smoothly, but you have embraced it all, huh?
I've worked with so many. I've worked with Amir and Tariq, who are known as Black Thought and Questlove.
Of course.
Okay. I worked with Lena Horne. I worked with the full spectrum. I've been around great writers like Amiri Baraka,
yes,
Sterling Brown. So I've been prepped for this. So we've been doing these concerts, and when Eric Gardner died and he was killed, I know when I woke up that morning, if Amiri Baraka or Sekou Sundiata were alive, they would have called me and said, "Yo, man, what we gonna do?
What we gonna do?
And what we gonna do?" So we did in 2016. We did a concert with mass with 80 musicians on the stage at the church, and that comes from the tradition of what's his name? It goes back to me. Sun Ra did it, where he would have these large groups of musicians, because a big sound makes a change. James Reese Europe, okay, going back to James.
Oh, you did it great. You're talking about the Harlem Armory, the 369, brother. James Reese, yes, sir.
But we come in masses. We come in large. So Breathe is a group of there will be 20 musicians, 16 brass, and six percussionists, and we will be at Mount Olive Church, which is 210 Lenox Avenue, also known as Malcolm X Boulevard. If his daughter, she would say Malcolm X Boulevard, also known as Lennox. You know,
Yes,
his daughters would say that. They reprimanded me one time when I said Lennox, but they both end in the X, so the X is on the spot. You know, so
the X is on the spot.
3 p.m. this Sunday from 3 to 5. We're going to be there just with just bringing a sonic sound that's going to shake the world, because that's what we do. You know, we do it.
What's the cost? What's the price, Bob?
It's the right price. It's free.
It's free.
You ain't got no excuses.
Come on, no excuses, Bob. Now, are you asking? We still in COVID, so you want people masked up or not?
They got to wear their masks. We don't have to bring no car, but you got to wear your mask to protect the musicians, because you know, you just wear your mask for like 2 hours. It ain't gonna kill you.
No, it ain't gonna kill you. In fact, it may save your life. Right. No question about it. But Bob, this is
3 p.m. 210 Lenox Avenue, also known as Malcolm X Boulevard, in the village of Harlem. Coming free. What you gonna ask me?
Now you've got some folk. I know I recognize some of the names quicker than others. Bob and Neil Clark out of Brooklyn, who played Randy Weston and all them. But could you talk about some of these cats are going to be jamming with you? Man?
These musicians, like a lot of people, it's all brass. It's 16 brass instruments. That's tubas, trumpets, euphoniums, French horns, and then just percussion. No saxophones, because we do breathe. We've done it in woodwind configuration. We've done it in string. But these are all of probably over the last 50 years on the music scene. You have the top players will be in this organization, and you know this. You coming to hear the cream of the cream. Okay, and it's going and the percussionists, 3 of them. I work a lot in Africa. I've been spending a lot of time working with a great percussionist named Dudu Ndai Rose, who was and so there's like the Sabar tradition of Senegal is the basis of it, and then Baba Neil Clark and Joan Ashley, who come out of Chief Bay, they will be complementing that. So it's a great sound.
The legendary Chief Bay. So, I mean, and of course, as I said, you've been described as a gifted sonic shaman. And when you name this Breathe, when you put this together, and I know I've read that you called it, you know, it's about the ancient contemporary sonic offerings we play. Breathe. Could you give us a second about that, Bob? Why is Breathe so important at the anchor this work?
You know, when after Eric Gardner died, and everybody's walking around talking about, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I was like, no. We got to breathe. You got to breathe. Breath is everything. Breathe through the bigotry. Breathe through the bondage.
Yes, sir.
Breathe through the brutality. Yes, breathe through the bigots. That's what we have to. We breathe through that. We breathe through our time. As a horn player, you know, the breath is all about the breath. Going back to that's that shaman thing where I go up into that thing with, you know, into the Kundalini, the Balini, or whatever, where we break it down. You have the breath. The breath is all. It's all in the breath. You know, we have to all take a breath. And if we breathe together, we can make a change. And that's what the breathing is serious.
No question. Now, of course, you've been officially dubbed a jazz hero. I think anybody who didn't know you before now, watching the Black Table, particularly these young people, I think you get a little hint of why. Tell us a little bit about Managing the Mask, Bob. That's been your last project, right?
Right. That's the last project. Managing the Mask, like people always say, well, what do during the lockdown, the COVID? I managed the mask with music. I wrote a lot of music. I have an ensemble called Harlem Night Songs. It's 10 of us. And we played at the church every other Friday. We played. And so that's how I managed the mask, with this great group of musicians and this great set of compositions, which is out now on my record company, Aquastra Music. You can get it on all the platforms, Spotify, Amazon, Twitter, Witter, Mex, whatever you go there, we got it. We got it on order. There's no excuses, because, you know, I listen to the young folk, and I'm, you know, you ain't leaving us behind. We up there, right up in here. Come on, you want to digitize? Let's get to it. And so the recording is out now. Please check it out. You can check it out and support us, because you have to be vested in your culture. I'm just telling you, else someone else will set the narrative. And we need you to check out Managing the Mask. Craig Harris and Harlem Night Songs. Managing the Mask. Managing the Mask. It's 12. There's 16 cuts on there, and there's something on there for everybody. We can go from the Pan-Africanists, the nationalists, the Marxists, the Ingu Saba pork eating on the sly Afro dreadlock girl, revolutionary. And that's the spirit from my brother Sekou Sundiata. So we got to get together again because, you know, when I talk to Dr. Greene, me and Dr. Greene been running parallel for years. And we do this work, you know. And DC is like my second home. You know, that's my second home. Well, and it's so good to see. I gotta just give you credit for keeping it going. I'm proud of you. I just met you today, and I'm just proud of you.
Yes, sir. Well, Bobby, look, we just glad that we are in this tradition. I love what you said. You got to be vested in your culture. If you don't control the narrative, somebody else will control it. How about?
Yeah. And that's a big part of the work that we do in Harlem and throughout. You know, like Warren Smith, my mentor, who's 89, going on 18, Jack Jeffers, 92. I have mentors, Marshall Allen, 98 years old, who leads the Sun Ra Orchestra to this day.
Yes, to this day. Come on.
98 and picks up his own saxophone. Don't nobody walks by himself, you know, and leads a band of youngers and tell them y'all need to get some energy and stuff.
I imagine that probably what keeps him alive. That's what
that's what keeps him alive, you know, and you know, just, you know, writing, just, you know, keep our head into some books, keep our head into some films, keep in this technology. You know, Shaka is a great young filmmaker, and I'm biased, but there's, you know, like Ryan Coolidge and all of them, what they're trying to, you know, they're busting that thing down. You know, we have to, you know, but you know, that presence. You know.
And the best of them, like you say, with Shaka King, Ryan Coolidge, the best of them know to connect with the elders and to make that intergenerational strength. So look, man, we want to thank you, Baba. We hope you'll come back, you and Dr. Greene, Sunday, October the 16th, 2022, Mount Olivet Baptist Church in the village of Harlem on Malcolm X Boulevard. If you all want to know more about that, the doors open at 2, the concert's at 3. It is free. So, you know, you can make it to the village. That would be a beautiful thing, man. We want to thank you, Baba, for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Greg. Thank you for embracing me.
No, well, listen, thank you for embracing me and us and for doing what you've done and what you continue to do, because that keeps us alive. We'll be back in a moment here at the Black Table. We've talked now to 2 titans in culture keeping. We'll be back in a moment to clear the table here on the Black Star Network at the Black Table.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back to the Black Table here on the Black Star Network. Continue to support the Black Star Network, of course. Today we heard from Dr. Brenda Greene, founder and director of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar College, and Craig Harris, Baba Craig Harris, trombonist, composer, culture keeper, a major figure in the area of African American, African diaspora arts. We heard about 2 events, one going on the 20th of October this year, and also the 16th of October, a free concert, Breathe, that'll be taking place. I'm so glad I want give particular credit and acknowledgement to our sister April Silver and Aquila Work Songs for making sure that we could have this conversation and bringing both Baba Craig and Dr. Greene into the conversation today. And we'll end today with one of Baba Craig's young bulls, as they would say in Philadelphia, the great Philadelphian Tariq Trotter, known as Black Thought. We heard Baba Craig say that we must be vested in our culture, because if we're not vested in it, somebody else may take it and take advantage of it. As Tariq Trotter would say, Black Thought, it's imperative we change the narrative. And so we saw two people who are making sure that the stories we tell about ourselves continue, persist, and feed new generations to come up with new, different improvisations based and deeply grounded in memory, the momentum of memory. Thanks for joining the Black Table. We'll be back next week. Again, support the Black Star Network, and thank you for viewing. We'll see you next week.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.